welcome back to the YouTube channel. Oh, I almost forgot about this thing. Yeah. So I've been really busy the past couple weeks, real life getting me going, but I did have enough time though to have an opportunity to join a Little Cup Draft League. So I've never done a Pokemon Draft League before, but I have done a lot of fantasy football and stuff like this, and the draft's always the most fun part, and it is something that I've wanted to get involved with. I see like the GBA, I followed that this past season. I thought that was a lot of fun. But so just to take you through my ideology here, so I've never done one of these before, so I thought to give myself the most leeway that I could here, just to give myself the most opportunities in case something went wrong. My thinking was that in my first few rounds, I just wanted to take the best Mons available, the best talent per se, and then I could start filling out these cores, working on glue pieces per se, to make sure that all the cores are filled out. And so basically I'll take you through that and how it all turned out. So I had third pick overall, and so my first mon here is Timber. So in a metagame, kind of dominated by, it was a 10-team league, by the way. In a metagame that's dominated by fighting types, this is perhaps the best one. It gets blessed with 3 very good abilities. Iron Fist, I think, is the one that's used the most, but Sheer Force, you could potentially run that with Life Orb. If you want to get frisky, Eviolite is the ubiquitous item, but you can also try to run some other stuff. It's fairly kind of predictable in what it does. I'm not going to be bringing out any special timbers, I don't think, but regardless, this thing can do a lot. Just between its fighting type moves, for the one Veils team here, or any dual screens, you do have Brick Break. That might be there, very niche. Mostly we'll have stuff like Drain Punch, which functions well as the bulky 4-attack set and the bulk up sets that are pretty common. We also have access to Hammer On if you need a little extra oomph behind those. Gets access to the coveted knockoff, priority with Mach Punch, P-Jab for the fairy types, and let's get some rocks coverage. If you really want to potentially run this as a support mon, you do get access to stuff like Taunt, and perhaps more importantly, stuff like Low Sweep, I think, is usable. And that can help you set things up with some other mons later and kind of move on from there. Rock Tomb as well potentially can be used. So even when we go into the Abyss here, we can still find some potential stuff. Heck, even maybe Brutal Swing might be able to do something. But yeah, just generally, pretty predictable move pool, but a good one nonetheless. Some nice coverage in here. Just a good mon overall, and just a nice building block off of what I can do. So with my second round pick, another mon that is just extremely useful is Pawniard. So this thing can just do a myriad of different things. It can run like 10 different sets efficiently. Fantastic offensive typing, very good ability. It can function as offensive or support. Has nice synergy with Timber, which is probably the biggest thing. Resist the flying type, and has an immunity for Psychic. So some really nice synergy going on right there. And this move pool is very, very deep for Little Cup Mon. You have stuff like Iron Head, you have Knockoff, P-Jab for coverage, Psycho Cut for coverage, X Scissor for coverage, Shadow Claw, I guess. For the pesky ghost types that you can't hit with your dark side moves, I guess. Anyway, Sucker Punch for priority. You have Thunder Wave, which is extremely useful, especially on this team like this. SD can function as a late game sweeper. You have access to Pursuit if you really need to trap something. So just a myriad of different things that you can do with this mon. I haven't even gotten into this part of it yet. And then, it can pull off bulky sets with Eviolite. It could potentially be a Scarf for Life Orb attack, or just a lot of things you can do with this mon, which is really good. So love the versatility, love that it's got a good typing, love the ability to, and like that it has synergy with Timber. So that was the first two. Now with my third round pick, again, I was trying to just go based off talent, so I'd done some poking around the Little Cup viability and sample teams forum, stuff like this, and all I heard was people singing the praises of Shelter, or maybe it was just one guy, I don't know. But they were just talking about how good this thing was as a late game sweeper. I played in the Little Cup Open for Smogon Grand Slam, and in my matchup today, in the first game, I was getting my I was getting my ass handed to me, but I managed to get a Volby to -1. And at that point, I could just mow through it with, all I had to do was just set up a shell smash, and then I just mowed through things. So the whole name of the game of this thing is just, it's such a good late game sweeper, and to have that in a draft format, I think is a really powerful tool, when you can kind of pick and choose your spots, when you can just try to get in with this thing. And all you need is just one turn to just set up a shell smash, and then it just mows through the opponent's team. I always misspeak on that, so it's nice to say shell smash correctly. I kind of have to slow myself down. Anyway. But yeah, so I guess if you really wanted to, you could try to run a bulky defensive set on this because it does get access to rapid spin as well. But I think that for the most part, it hits some nice benchmarks with its HP and defense. It has a nice typing. But with that being said, I mean, this thing is just so freaking good as a late game sweeper. And also, although its typical set is the physical one with Icicle Spear, Ice Shard, and like Rock Blast, something like this. I think you can pull off a special sweeping set as well. They kind of hit the same benchmark. You could hit something like Pump, Ice Beam, and then Hidden Power coverage. So there are a different couple ways you can go about this, but just to have such a powerful late game sweeper, get that in the 3rd round. So around like what, the 23rd pick, something around that, like this, is really, really nice. Alright, so then next time around, so this is around like the 37th pick or something like this. I was extremely happy to see Ghastly was still there. So this late, just to see one of the premier offensive, especially offensive threats in the metagame to still be around, I was like, I can't pass on this, right? So this thing gets some nice coverage. It also has a nice utility move pool with stuff like Destiny Bond, Disable, Will-O-Wisp, stuff like this. Could potentially pair that with Haze. So yeah, you have stuff here that you could do work with. Potentially even Perish Song. Not a Perish Trapper per se, but if you could get this thing to get knocked out on the turn of 1, you could potentially give a turn to set up with something else, a free turn of setup essentially. If you really want to get frisky, you could also do stuff like Hypnosis. Got Icy Wind in there. Icy Wind's actually a favorite move of mine, but in OU, just because of stuff that can lure in Landorus Therian, but that's a story for another day. Anyway. And then I guess you also had some other stuff right here. None of these moves are fairly important, except for potentially something like a Thief or a Thun Torment. I also potentially thought about Wonder Room, since something like Shelter's defense and special defense is swapped, right? Like, it's very specially weak, but its defense is good, and potentially if you want to set up on a special attacker, you could do that. You have stuff like Energy Ball, so you have good coverage, but the name of the game with this thing is that it's just a very, very powerful special attacker with a very good offensive typing. And to get that in the 4th round, 40 mons in, is really, really nice. Alright, so now after this point, I started thinking about trying to fill out my cores. So the first one for that was Spritzy. Our fighting resists were really non-existent. We have Ghastly, but that's about as soft an immunity as it gets. Same with Ground for Ghastly, just because its defenses are really bad. Potentially with fighting types too, you have knockoff, something like a Timber, that's on my team, or a Mienfu, stuff like this. Things get access to coverage that can hit Ghastly. So I wanted a solid fighting resist as well as a dark resist, and this thing kind of doubled up as both. The name of the game with this thing is kind of as cleric typically, something like Wish, Protect, Moonblast, Calm Mind is a standard set. But I think that its move pool is a little bit deeper than people think, potentially. Potentially in draft format too, when certain things matter more. But with stuff like Energy Ball, Psychic, maybe Flash Cannon, and Thunderbolt, you can actually hit a decent number of things. I feel like offensive Calm Mind, I feel like, is a potential thing, but with stuff like Aromatherapy too, you could just go full Cleric, which would be really nice as well. Just all in all, this thing is, I think, a solid mon. Probably the 2nd best fairy type in the tier next to Snubble, maybe. And I think it's a really nice glue piece for this team based on how it was coming along so far. Next up is Scrub. I actually screwed up when I drafted this thing. I actually didn't know that it was Poison Water. I just assumed that it was like Dragology, so it was Poison Dragon, but alas, there's that. But this thing does function as a nice fire resist, which we really did need. So there's that. Unfortunately, we are still searching for electric communities at this point, but we'll get to that in a second. What the name of the game with this thing is that it hits very hard with adaptability on either side, so its attack is actually usable, given it's only just a point lower than special attack. And its move pool isn't bad either. You have Gunk Shot here, you have Waterfall, as well as on the other side you have stuff like Pump, you have Scald, you have and some Dragon type moves as well as T-Spike. So T-Spikes actually feel like are a little bit more useful than people think in this tier, despite how Toxic isn't that good. I think that it does do a nice enough job of whittling things down. So I'm on another team that I used in this tier that not for a draft, but it had a Marini on it, and T-Spikes on that proves to be really nice. Just getting that little bit of damage off that you need to help support the team. But the main thing with this is that it does hit very hard, and it has a decent offensive typing too, very nice offensive typing. So anything water with adaptability is really nice. Its low speed is a hindrance, but I'm thinking if I can pivot into this thing effectively, potentially it might not be a problem. Alright, so moving on here. Next up we have Corefish. So right now we're got some water spam going on. Again, I didn't know this girl was water type. Anyway, but the name of the game with this thing is that it's just such a powerful priority attacker. I saw this one on the board, and I knew that I'd been building a pretty offensive team so far, but I just thought that it was too good to pass up since priority Aquajet with this thing is just so darn good in the late game. As well as you can run SD. It has decent bulk with Eviolite, or you can run a Z Crystal, Band, Scarf, Life Orb, stuff like this. You could potentially run these different things. So definitely he has some utility with this thing. Even Dragon Dance is usable in Little Cup. And can't really do it with Crawdon because it's too slow, but with this, when things are closer to level 5, you could potentially do that. And it gets access to the coveted knockoff as well. So I love the crabs. I gotta have my crab. Oh, and you could also run Switcheroo, I suppose, if you wanted to do Band or something like this. So you have options. All right, so yeah, we were still searching for those electric immunities. I was really happy to see Hippopotas available this late. As well as we just need the solid physical wall, and a stealth rock setter. So this thing just kind of filled a lot of holes that I needed. Even with Stand Stream can help effectively get chip off on this thing. This is one of the better physical checks in the tier, and to get it as late as I did, I thought was awesome. So you got stuff like Earthquake here, Slack Off, Stealth Rock, Toxic Whirlwind. Whirlwind I'll be probably using a lot. But the big thing with this is that while it's fairly predictable and very straightforward, it does its job extremely well, and it will function as a very effective glue piece for this team. So that's the biggest thing here. Next up, we've got Rowlet, the adorable little owl thing. So again, we needed another, more solid, not just electric resist, or not just electric immunity, because this can get nailed with coverage, but just a resist. I just realized that it was flying as well. So this one's not as good either. But regardless, the bigger thing at hand here was that I wanted a solid form of hazard control as well as something with some utility. So this thing actually has a lot that it can do. It can function as a just straight up attacker. Has a nice stat move in Brave Bird, something like this. And it hits a decent, fair enough attack stat. It is pretty slow, but it can work around that. Physical or special attacker it can do. More importantly, though, is that it gets access to both Swords Dance and Nasty Plot, as well as Baton Pass. So you could either Nasty Pass or Swords Dance Pass, things like this. It can function offensively enough on its own. You also get access to Light Screen. Again, if you want to potentially help a shoulder sweep, something like this. Biggest thing was just a nice defogger, but it does have some offensive utility, some passing utility that might work out kind of well. We'll see. We wanted another one. I wanted another one. And I also wanted a more solid, just psychic immunity, psychic check. So I took Stunky with my next one. So again, another thing that gets access to defog, but also has a really nice support move pool, stuff like Pursuit, coverage, and stuff like Fire Blast. It can explode to get out of there. Acid Spray. You also have, what is it? No, you got Memento up here, which I really like. Sucker Punch. Potentially, the thing could work offensively with maybe Hone Claws plus something else. So you never know what we could work with here. But yeah, all in all, just good stuff all around. Just a solid utility mon that's kind of underranked, I think, a draft format, just because it gets outclassed by stuff in the typical game, namely Lowland Grimer, which kind of just does its job better, but it's still very, very solid. So, good stuff. Next up was Kabuto. I wanted another form of hazard control, as well as another rock setter. This can double up as both. It also does well against a good variety of metagame threats, so get priority with this thing. Just have a lot of utility with this thing. You have stuff like rock slides that can help take out things like Archin. What else I was thinking about? The important thing is that you just get a nice amount of utility out of this thing. So. And so it was a value pick again this late, trying to get hazard control, as well as something with a nice offensive typing. That's now 4 water types that we have on this team, but all of them kind of do something different. So, and water's just a good typing in general. So you never know, I might get frisky and just get a bunch of water spam. Anyway, with my last 2 picks, again, just more value picks here. I took Magby. I wanted an offensive fire type because I think fire is a pretty darn good offensive typing. I think this thing is underranked in the in draft format, just because of the fact that it gets outclassed again in the main game. Its main niche in the main game is belly drum, but I think in this it can function as both a physical and a special attacker. Its special coverage is not very great, and that's the main reason thing that kind of causes it to kind of get pushed back a little bit, and kind of shoehorns it into being a physical attacker, but nevertheless it's there. It hits a decent speed tier. It gets up to about a very good speed tier, actually, I should say, because it reaches 19. It gets access to taunt as well. That was the... Oh, no, I'm sorry, it does not get access to taunt. I thought it got access to taunt. I believe Stunky gets access to... Yeah, Stunky gets access to taunt. So taunt's really, really nice as a utility move in Little Cup as well. So that was the thinking there. I guess that was part of the thinking with Magby anyway, but I guess I'm mistaken. I don't even know my teams. Yeah. Also with Vital Spirit, it's nice for potential spore or something like this. I'm not expecting this thing to necessarily be able to sweep too often, but I do think that it can be a nice wall breaker, especially with the variability that can come with this thing, as a physical, special, stuff like this. And maybe a potential, Scarfer as well. Just a lot of different things that I think you can do with this thing, and to get it this late was nice. Last was Larvesta. Again, just another value pick. I think this thing is actually really darn good. People stayed away, I think, because of the quad weakness stealth rocks, but I think that it can do a cool lot. It can function as a bulky pivot, which is the main thing. Again, it hits a decent enough speed tier. You can run it as a Scarfer or something along these lines. I actually think its special attack is not half bad either, and it does get access to Calm Mind as well. Like, there's just a lot of things you can do with this thing. Wild Charge, get really nice coverage off of that. And I think that this can function well in a given tier, especially with Flame Body, I should say. If you can get a burn off on something, get a Wisp off on something, it can just help set something else up to sweep. So again, just all over the place. We're just trying to get an identity for this team and just kind of give myself different options. So I have the possibility to potentially do Hazard Stack plus late game Scarf or something like this. I have the potential to just do all-out offense, just kind of spam typing, just kind of remove checks. Have the ability to just run like a very balanced team, which just kind of plays off one another and just kind of keeps the game in control until the late game. So just trying to keep myself open with options here and keep things going. I was pretty happy with how this went. We had one guy that didn't get half of his late picks in, so that could have helped with some of the value that I was able to get late. But all in all, I think just really, really nice stuff that I was able to get out of this. But putting it all together might be a little bit a tricky proposition, per se. So we'll have to see how that is. But all in all, I have some nice pieces to work with here, and then just kind of fitting the puzzle all together will be the main thing, right? Alright, so that'll be it here. Hope you enjoyed me talking about this. I feel like this is almost more for myself than anything else. I need to understand what I want to do with this team. Why I took these mods. Why did I do this? But all in all, I think that this will be pretty darn fun. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you've watched this part, thank you so much. And yeah, until next time, see ya.